Canada's defense strategy just exploded into chaos. Mark Carney stormed into 2025 demanding U.S. defense contracts and a guaranteed seat at the table. He wanted concessions. He wanted favors. He wanted Trump to bend. Instead, Trump slammed the door in his face.
Is it still your expectation that NATO countries spend 5% of their GDP on defense spending?
Well, I think they should do that. I don't think we should, but I think they should. We've been supporting NATO so long. In many cases, I believe paying almost 100% the cost. So I don't think we should, but I think that the NATO countries should, absolutely. You know who else was a low payer, just about the lowest? A place called Canada. Because Canada said, why should we pay when the United States will protect us free? And they've been right about that.
The $19 billion deal for 88 F-35 fighter jets, supposed to lock Canada into the future of air defense, now hangs in limbo. Carney called it reviewing options. Trump called it what it is, freeloading. Canada spends less than 2% of its GDP on NATO while expecting Washington to foot the bill. The result? A stalled deal, a weakened military, and a prime minister exposed as indecisive on the world stage. If Carney thought he could strong-arm Trump, he just learned the hard way. America doesn't play that game anymore. Stay tuned, hit like, subscribe, and keep watching, because what comes next will shock you. Trump didn't waste any time. The moment Carney strutted into the defense arena, demanding that Washington hand over lucrative defense contracts, Trump fired back with a message that cut deeper than any press release. Canada is a freeloader. That wasn't just a jab. It was a wake-up call. For years, the United States has shouldered the weight of NATO, pouring billions into defense while allies like Canada hide behind America's shield. Carney thought his charm and polished speeches could turn the tide. He believed that dangling Canada's $19 billion fighter jet order would force Washington's hand. But Trump doesn't play by those rules. He doesn't bend to guilt trips, and he certainly doesn't hand out contracts as favors. Instead, he did what Carney feared most. He exposed Canada's weakness to the world. Let's get into the numbers. Canada promised NATO it would spend 2% of its GDP on defense.
Canada will achieve NATO's 2% of GDP target this year.
Today, they barely scrape 1.3%. That gap isn't just numbers on paper. It's the difference between a functioning military and a hollow one. Trump looked straight at Carney's demand and reminded him, America first.
America first. America first.
Translation: if you can't pull your weight, don't expect the U.S. to bankroll your Air Force. Carney's gamble was that America needed Canada to lock in NORAD modernization. He pushed the F-35 deal as leverage, insisting that Canada deserved offsets, contracts for Canadian factories, Canadian workers, Canadian prestige. The reality? The U.S. already produces 70% of global defense contracts. They don't need Canada. Canada needs them. And Trump made that imbalance painfully clear. The irony is brutal. Canada has been dragging its feet on fighter jet replacements for decades. Their current fleet, the ancient CF-18s, are older than many of the pilots flying them. Maintenance costs are through the roof, parts are cannibalized from museum pieces, and morale in the Royal Canadian Air Force is at rock bottom. Yet Carney thought this was the perfect time to demand special treatment from Washington. Instead of walking away with a victory, Carney walked right into Trump's trap. By calling out Canada's freeloading, Trump not only stalled the $19 billion purchase, but also forced Canadians to face an uncomfortable truth. Their military is falling apart. That doesn't just weaken Canada, it puts the entire North American defense shield at risk, and here's where the drama deepens. September 22 was supposed to be the final deadline for Ottawa to sign the deal for 88 F-35 jets. Defense officials were practically begging for it, calling the F-35 the only platform capable of meeting Canada's security needs for the next 40 years. But Carney blinked. He announced a review. Translation: delay, dodge, and distract. Instead of decisive leadership, Canadians got another stall tactic. Even worse, Carney floated the idea of considering Sweden's Gripen jets as an alternative. It sounded bold on paper, but military analysts shredded the plan within hours. Gripens can't integrate seamlessly into NORAD. They lack the stealth capabilities of the F-35. They're cheaper, yes, but cheap doesn't protect your skies when hypersonic missiles and stealth bombers are the threats of the future. Floating Gripens wasn't a strategy. It was desperation dressed as diplomacy. Trump, of course, seized the moment. He reminded Canadians that America doesn't compromise on jobs or security. Every F-35 contract supports thousands of American workers across Texas, Florida, and beyond. Why should US taxpayers sacrifice those jobs so Carney can score political points back home? The contrast couldn't be starker. Trump protects his economy, while Carney plays politics with Canada's security. But this wasn't the end of the story. Carney's gamble didn't just stall a fighter jet deal, it cracked open a larger debate. If Canada can't maintain a credible military, what does that mean for its alliances? For its sovereignty? For its role in the world? The cracks in Canada's defense posture were no longer hidden. Trump had dragged them into the spotlight, and what happened next would expose just how fragile Canada's military truly is. The cracks turned into gaping holes once the F-35 review dragged on. Inside Ottawa, defense officials were fuming. Generals had been warning for years that Canada was sleepwalking into a crisis. The Air Force is running planes older than the Berlin Wall, the Navy struggles to keep ships seaworthy, and the Army can't even meet its recruitment goals. Carney's refusal to commit didn't just delay one purchase, it spotlighted decades of decay. Meanwhile, Trump doubled down. He told crowds in Michigan and Ohio that America would never again subsidize lazy allies. The applause was thunderous. This wasn't just about fighter jets, it was about respect. Trump framed it as a simple equation. If Canada won't invest in its own defense, why should America bleed jobs and money to prop them up? To his audience, it made perfect sense. And to Canada, it was humiliating. The humiliation deepened as US lawmakers piled on. Senators openly mocked Carney's review, saying Canada wanted champagne security on a beer budget. Editorials in Washington papers called Ottawa the weakest link in North America's defense chain. Even European NATO members, themselves often criticized for underspending, looked at Canada's excuses and rolled their eyes. Carney had managed to do the impossible: unite Washington hawks, Trump loyalists, and NATO skeptics in scorn. And what was Carney's answer? More stalling. He claimed Canada was reviewing alternatives and needed time to ensure value for money. It sounded responsible, but it fooled no one. The truth was glaring. Canada simply didn't want to pay. Every month of delay meant another month of flying clunky CF-18s, patched together with spare parts from scrapyards. Every postponement meant another reminder that Canada's military wasn't prepared for modern warfare. Let's put this in perspective. The F-35 program isn't just another jet contract, it's the backbone of Allied air power for the next half-century. 15 countries have already locked in orders, integrating fleets, sharing parts, and pooling resources. Canada dragging its feet doesn't just hurt itself, it disrupts alliance cohesion. NORAD modernization requires seamless integration, and without the F-35, Canada becomes the weak spot in the radar shield protecting the continent. Trump's refusal forced Canadians to look at that reality. Back home, the political fallout was explosive. Even premiers in Alberta and Saskatchewan chimed in, warning that federal incompetence was putting Canadian lives and sovereignty at risk. The image of a strong, decisive leader Carney had tried to project crumbled in real time. Trump, meanwhile, looked stronger than ever. While Carney delayed, Trump painted himself as the adult in the room. He told Americans that defending their jobs and their wallets mattered more than appeasing weak leaders. And here's the kicker: he wasn't wrong. By refusing Canada's demands, Trump protected American manufacturing jobs tied to the F-35 supply chain. He turned Carney's tantrum into a patriotic victory lap. And what about Canada's defense industry? Stalled. Domestic contractors had banked on offsets from the F-35 deal, hoping to modernize factories and secure skilled jobs. With the review dragging on, contracts froze, workers faced uncertainty, and smaller firms teetered on bankruptcy. The promise of a $19 billion stimulus turned into a nightmare of indecision. Carney's global grandstanding didn't just embarrass Canada abroad, it bled jobs at home. The irony? Canada doesn't lack resources, it lacks leadership. Alberta oil could fund defense. Saskatchewan uranium could fuel strategy. British Columbia's ports could anchor Pacific power. But instead of unleashing Canada's potential, Carney tied the nation's future to endless reviews and foreign appeasement. While Trump told his people America first, Carney acted like Canada last. By the time September 22nd came and went without a signed deal, the damage was permanent. Canada's credibility was shattered, its military exposed, and its prime minister branded as weak. The world saw it. Allies noticed. Enemies noticed. And Trump? He couldn't have scripted it better. But this story wasn't over yet. Canada's $19 billion fighter jet deal in tatters, its military exposed, and its prime minister humiliated on the world stage. Trump called it exactly what it is: freeloading. And he refused to play along. That refusal wasn't just about defense contracts, it was a statement. America will no longer subsidize weak allies who won't carry their share of the burden. Carney wanted to posture. Instead, he left Canada scrambling with broken jets, stalled contracts, and angry allies. And the worst part? He still refuses to unleash Canada's own resources, oil, gas, minerals, that could strengthen the economy and fund real defense. This is what happens when leadership collapses. Trump chose strength. Carney chose delay. And Canada is paying the price. If you're tired of watching leaders fumble with your future, hit like, subscribe, and keep watching, because the next chapter in this saga is only getting started.